That's my house. This is my school.
Now, Miss Wilson, you were born in 1931 in Greene County, Georgia. Can you say something about the significance of these two photographs? The pic of one of your schoolhouse and the house you were born in.
Yes. So, I was born in this house. I grew up in this house. Third of the 9 children my parents had. The first of the oldest girl, who put a lot of pressure on me because they give you lots of responsibility. Being the oldest girl, I don't want to be the oldest girl. Anyway, so there was such a need for a school. In 31, there was no school in Greensboro, Greene County, Georgia, for African Americans. And family members and friends on the church property of the schoolhouse built the one-room schoolhouse. And it truly was and is a one-room, just as we see here. And we had one teacher. And the one teacher taught, we referred to them as small kids on one side of the room and the bigger kids on the other side. And she never, ever had a discipline problem. And she said, you better do your work while I teach these. And it worked. So we had what at that time was called recess. And we all went out and we all played together. And when it was time to leave, we didn't have a bus. So the teacher would let the little people ride with her. And the big people had to walk. Now, I would think that some of us had to walk maybe 5 miles. Wow. And so what I remember the most of that is the white kids had the bus. And they would yell out of the bus at us, calling names and just totally being disrespectful. But we were taught to just ignore. They cannot hurt you unless they physically hurt you. But I don't necessarily agree with that, but no, we absolutely followed the rules.
And she actually, the horse and carriage.
At first, yes.
She actually carried.
the horse, we call it the horse and buggy. So carriage is a later new name for it, but we call it the horse and buggy. And she also lived in the community, so she would come around and we would pile into her buggy and get to school. And it wasn't until, because we don't have a photo of that, I was at the 3rd or 4th grade when I left one room. And it was during and under the Roosevelt administration that his New Deal program came south. and start building schools, especially for blacks. And so there was one of the representatives on the committee who supported that. Name was Alexander. So my second school was the Alexander Center, which was to 8th grade, and it was more like a vocational type school because the parents and the adults in the community could come to learn different skills that they didn't have. They learned how to do work in the house, make curtains, make bedspreads, make slip covers. That's a term I learned way back then. And then learn how to can in cans. So my introduction to real cans was back then. It was so different because we had been used to, you know, mom and her sisters and grandma using the jars with the pressure cooker, which you had, that was a skill all by itself. You had to pay close attention. It could only get to some temperature. It had a little whistle on it that said it time to move it off of the heat. Wow. And so that's
well, that's amazing.
By the end of this and the Alexander Center, I went to we moved into the town of Greensboro, and they had a high school there, and it was the Greensboro Colored High School. So downtown was the schools for white, and our little community was called Canaan, and that's where I went to high school. And that was so big, you would have thought I was going to the university. Have all these kids in different grades. The fact that the building was falling down didn't mean nothing to me, except this is a big school. We had a basketball team, and we had to play outdoors. Georgia Red played court, but we played.
So what happened to their uniform?
I wanted so bad to be a good basketball player, and I knew that I couldn't. I wasn't coordinated to me to do that. So I wanted to be part of the team because all my friends, they were playing and having a good time. So I figured it out. My home ec teacher said, we need to have uniforms at some of the other schools. Well, from the Alexander Center, where I used to stand at the sewing machine and watch my mama sew, I learned how to sew. So we got fabric, we got a pattern, and I became the seamstress of the basketball team. And I made the shorts, and we bought the little white tops, and we were outfitted like some of the other teams, and that put me on the team. So, and yeah, I think I mentioned how I never saw myself in the leadership role. I just saw myself as always being part of the team. And the principal and my teacher, they always pushed and said, you should do this. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. And they was like, no such word as can. You need to try doing this. involved with the student council, involved in several things in the community.
Yeah, so they knew early on
They
that
knew,
leadership,
but
you didn't, but they saw it.
I never thought of that. I never thought of that even after I moved here and ran for city commission. So, but you know, that was it, and it was. I tell people now, I am the face of what Georgia's separate and equal system is. I didn't let this stop me from keep trying. Mm-hmm. Now my trying is a little bit different than what my principal and parents and grandparents thought. They saw something I didn't feel. They saw that leadership that they kept pushing me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, I kept saying no. And he kept saying, yes, you can. Mm-hmm. And no matter, you know, what the situation was, even if I told them I couldn't do it, I became the it person and I would try. Mm-hmm. So that just kept leading me into other things, community activities, church-sponsored, community-sponsored, and then to the Decatur, Georgia.
Oh, okay. Great. That's a good segue, Ms. Ross. Okay, so that's our first part, life in Greene County. That was a good summary. I'm glad you said, you know, the part about you are the face of, you know, the separate equal, how far you can go past that. Yeah, and I do tell young people that now, because they, my grandchildren, and I always use them as my example, they don't know, they've heard it, they've read it, but they don't really fully understand what it means. And so I tell them, this is what it was like for me. And I didn't know at that time that I would keep growing. And I knew what I felt, but I didn't know that it would lead me into all of it. You moved to Decatur, Georgia, and you thought life would be better, but what was the reality? And can you tell us something about these photographs?
The streets.
The streets, Beacon Hill streets, and
like when I moved, in 1949, when I moved to Decatur, I was on this street.
You were on Herring Street?
I was on Herring when I moved. Okay. And Herring Street then name got changed to Trinity. So the city of Decatur made from the railroad to almost Ponce. The street got changed a little over by the post office to Trinity. So I left one place with the separate and equal to move to the big town that still had the separate but equal. It was like, but I thought I was moving somewhere that they didn't have the same thing. And I didn't know about the Klans started their organization in DeKalb County, in Stone Mountain. I didn't really know about that until I got, here, and I heard people talking about
So I was used to hearing the term night riders in Greensboro. Now later I found out that clans were also there, but I just didn't hear about it. And so it doesn't take you long moving to a new place to find out some of the history, where the churches are, where the places that Black people can go. You experience when they said, we don't serve color here. And so, you know, in my mind, I'm saying, you know, one day we're going to change this. I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to change this. This is not right. So, not having any representation on any committee, any elected part, nothing. So we were left out, we meaning the whole Beacon Hill community, of all of the decision-making places, commission, businesses, school board. There was no representation. But yet, all of the school stuff was controlled, or every decision that was made by the group who knew nothing about what life was in a Black community. And so, yeah, I became very involved with the church, which I had grown up to be, you know, member of the church. I became a member of Decatur, had something like Decatur Colored Citizen League, something like that. I became involved with the kindergarten, starting with kindergarten to the elementary school, Beacon, to whatever else I could do, and finding out how can I do something to make a difference in my community. So I would go down to Wheat Street Baptist Church, Reverend Waters, Ebenezer, where Daddy came before Martin was still in Alabama, and all of those kind of business people who was busy making decisions of how Atlanta was going to integrate. And part of the teaching was, you go back to your community and see what you can do to make a difference. I was young enough. I was young enough that I thought I could really, you know, do something. So with my getting with my friends, we started the first chapter of the NAACP. In some of the material, you'll see a picture of Jackie Robinson. Again, Jackie Robinson came and spoke on voter registration and NAACP. And that was not easy because one of the founders, Mr. John Shanks, lost his job because somebody found some of the material that he was using for NAACP, reported it to his, wherever he worked, and they fired him. Now, he had done nothing wrong, and nobody should have, you know, probably did. And Rosetta was a nurse, and she worked independently. So it didn't affect her job. And I wasn't working at the time, so it didn't bother me. But we used to go, before DeKalb County became urban as it is, we used to go in all of the different parts of the county. Some of the roads were not paved. Some of the roads were not completed. Sometimes we would have to wind around and through the pasture and get into the community. But it didn't stop us. And the police, a couple of times we got lost because it was so dark out there in the house street. And the police stopped and wanted to know, where you going? And then they would sort of dress you down with the boy, with the, just totally being disrespectful. We did not get arrested, but we got talked down to. And that was motivation that you can't stop now. So we kept going, and we kept going. And the biggest thing that came out of all of this for us is to pick up the phone and call Jackie Robinson, and he came. And it was like the biggest event that Decatur had ever had, other than just a regular church. And he was, people were, Thankful Baptist Church was on Atlanta Avenue then. And it was probably the biggest of the churches in the community. And Jackie came, and the crowd was all over Atlanta Avenue, Trinity, everywhere, wanting to get in to see Jackie and hear him. And he was just, so calm and down to earth. And, it was amazing that we were able to do that. But we continued to meet, we continued to grow, we continued to get people involved. And we had this one of the deacons at Thankful Baptist Church, Deacon Epster. And Deacon Epster was truly a community person. And he would talk to us about voter registration and participating in the community stuff. He knew Dr. King Sr. And so they had it was some kind of, with the ministers and the deacons in the church. So they talked about changing the community. So my being a registered voter as of right now is because Deacon Epster said we should register and vote. And I did. Just out of the blue, I went in and registered to vote.
Wow.
And then, we kept working on other people. You want things to happen in your neighborhood, this is what you have to do.
Now when you mention neighborhood, the Beacon Hill community pretty much started slowly being dismantled.
The Beacon community, this is Beacon Hill in the city. The city of Decatur is 4 square miles. And in this is where this is the Beacon community. And so part of what was happening is we were doing the organizing the NAACP and schools and all of that. the plan had already been put in place for urban renewal. So phase one the community began to change. Streets were disappearing. No new development coming in for blacks, and there was no other section of town where blacks could move. So you either lived in the Beacon Hill section or you had to move out. And that moved us all out until we no longer have any of these streets.
So all these streets have
the only thing that's left is on this is Trinity, Electric, Robin, Oliver, which is now Commerce. This is the area. Yeah. And then that's phase one. And then we go through phase two. And we still don't have anybody from the Beacon community on the board to help make or listen to do anything that says, wait a minute, could we have this for our community? None of that, including Dr. Deacon Epster. Now they named the park, just like they named Allen Wilson Terrace for Dr. Allen Wilson. But they didn't have none of us on the committee.
The board of committee.
Yeah.
And you mentioned in 1955 Decatur branch of NAACP was founded, and you started, like you said before, you went to Ebenezer to start with the civil rights programming, and that started inspiring you, and you started attending meetings at Ebenezer and also Wheat Street. And you told us a little bit about Jackie Robinson. That was the biggest event in Decatur, and you actually got him to sign this program.
Yeah. In
and you know what year that was?
1968.
Oh.
1968. This is when I received the first of the big awards that I received. I had no idea what this was, so I kept getting the letters, notices that said, would I accept the Good Neighbor of the Year award? I thought it was junk mail, so I kept tossing it. And finally, somebody from the Office of the National Conference of Christian and Jews, who this was an annual program that they did, and they had sort of like, I never considered, at least me, being high profile or famous for nothing. I, again, only thought, wonder which one of my friends, nominated me for this, and they needed somebody from Decatur. But that wasn't quite what it was. And so somebody called and said, Miss Wilson, would you please let us know whether you're going to accept the award? And we chatted for a minute, and I said, yes. So I have the photo of the group, 11 of us who received that award. And the mayor of Atlanta was Allen, and he was the one who signed off on all of that. And there was one young person who was an actor, Johnny Popwell, and just some of the rest of us had just been busy in the community. And you know, that was my big entree to the world of
And what year did you get the Good Neighbor Award?
68.
Okay,
so that's that program.
That's that program. Oh, okay, wow.
Yeah,
and this one right here where it says you this she opens doors for those left behind.
this came after this interview here, and all of a sudden, you know,
The floodgates open.
Yeah.
newspaper calling me, the radio station calling me, you know, and I'm like, okay, again, I don't know what I'm doing here, but, and they would say, you know, like, tell me about this. How did this happen? Well, in Decatur, we never had demonstrations. We never had marches. When Scott and I went to the DeKalb Library to see if we could check any books out, we had no idea what we were doing either. But we had been attending the meetings to talk about what if. And so the night when we talked about what if somebody tests the water in DeKalb County. So, of course, nobody readily raised their hand. But if you don't raise your hand, you get called on. And I got to be the it person, me and Miss Scott. And it probably was a couple of other people who backed out. And then we had these two white ladies who was helping us. One of them was in the car outside, and one of them was inside so she could see what happened if anything happened in there. She had told us what to do, what to look for, and how to find her, but don't acknowledge that we know her. And so when we came in the door, we didn't exactly look like we were the hired help. So the staff, of course, we didn't tell anybody we were doing this. So the staff looked very surprised. And we, I think we probably asked something about the children's section, which she directed us. And we saw Emily in the children's section, which is where she told us she would be. So we come in and we go to the children's section and we get out of a stack of books we want to bring, and we bring them up to the desk and said, oh, we would like to check these out. And the little lady at the desk, she said, do y'all have a card?
She knew you guys didn't have a card.
She knew we didn't have a card.
Because it was segregated.
Yep. And so we said, no, but if you tell us how we can get a card. And so she nervously put a piece of paper out here and said, you got to fill this out. And we said, okay. Now, what we had not figured on was her giving us that piece of paper. So we didn't know exactly whether we stand there and fill it out or whether we go home and fill it out and bring it back. Emily saw us all of this time, and she knew she couldn't say nothing to us. And Sally was across the street there, about close to the motor station, in what she referred to as the getaway car. And she
Getaway.
said, the getaway car. She said, now Elizabeth, she said, really, if something had happened, I probably would have left y'all right there. But nothing happened. And Dottie and I were so excited that we're not getting beat up. We're not being drugged behind the car. We're not having the dogs on us. And we didn't wait for Sally to let us in the car. We walked from the library down Trinity to where we live. And we fill our papers out and carry them back. Maybe the next day or sometime after we got over. I was shocked too. And that was the way that happened.
That's how the Decatur Library got integrated.
Right, 1962.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so we on the road now, right?
Mm-hmm.
We decided to check the school system out.
Mm-hmm.
So that summer we came to just enroll our kids in the summer school. Because we thought that would be the easiest. It wouldn't be that many black kids, and it was not that many white kids. Now, on the black side of all of this, they had never had summer school in the black school. They always had it in the white school. So if our kids needed summer school to make up a class or whatever, we had to go into Atlanta. And at that time, Atlanta had David T. Howard and Washington High,
yeah.
and maybe one of the others. So we go, and again, we did not have an appointment. And purposely we didn't, because we figured if we let everybody know we were coming, it could have been more demonstration and all. So the one valuable piece of paper I have, I do want you to have a copy of it, and I'll give it to you because I just found it in some of the stuff I was doing. It's the letter I wrote after the meeting with Dr. Renewal, dated June 1962, the time we entered and what happened during that whole time. I forgot all about I had that. And I'm like, you know what? I need to make sure I include this in the papers for the History Center. Because a lot of people have no idea what happened. And if you and then Dr. Renfro later on, when I was having a program at the History Center, the night I gave all of this, it was, I had the Black History program, and I had the students who actually went to Decatur High School in 1965. And Dr. Renfro's story is very different from my story. And the lady yesterday who was there, Miss Anderson, she was one of the ones who
talked to him.
Mm-hmm. But we were denied. But we didn't stop.
You kept going and going until it happened.
Well, they were building the building that's there now, right? And we decided we'll not go back until the new building was built. And when the new building was built, we marched all those 20-some students over there. And there were people, I must say, that we didn't exactly know who they were, except I knew a couple of them. But I had never had conversation with them about the school. But I found later that they were very supportive, not only of what we were doing, but they told their Rotary brothers or whatever those groups that they were in, they did not want the city of Decatur torn apart. It was time. We're going to do this. And we didn't have no demonstration, no marches, no. I got a few phone calls addressing me as that woman. And
so the integration is slowly happening.
But we've been used to that. I mean, it was never acceptable, but we'd heard it before. Where they never addressed black women as if we were part of the human race. So you just keep moving. You just don't let them take over. And so our kids, 1965, and then in 1967, the year they graduated, at least that part, one of the kids graduated in 66, and several of the others graduated in 67. And then the board made a decision to close the Trinity School because one, they didn't have enough students to have a high school. They only had like a little more than 100. So the board decision was, we're gonna close Trinity and everybody come to Decatur High School.
Finally. So at the same time, like you were saying, all this mistreatment, you were doing your civil rights work. You were also doing something else significant that most people don't know about. And they don't know that you're the founder and CEO of the Beacon Hill Clinic, which later was to become Oakhurst Community Health Center. So tell us about the incident that made you want to open the center and how you made the Oakhurst Community Health Center a reality.
Well, again, you see, you live through all of these situations where it's just there right in your face that no, you can't receive service here. We have service over here for color. And at some point, you just don't want to hear that anymore. And so there were no medical facilities in DeKalb County that would treat black people. You could go to the health department with your children and you could get your shots. All that kind of preventative medicine. So if I had a sore throat, or if I had something that was so minor and needed a doctor, I had to go to Grady Hospital to sit in the emergency room for hours to try to see a doctor. So one day I took my kids to get shots, vaccination, whatever. And the nurse was so mean to not just me and my children, but to all the black people who were there. And I didn't say, and I didn't make no scene. I just observed it and came home and thought about it and prayed about it and got to work. And I got me some volunteers and community, church members, doctors, nurses, the support of St. Thomas More was one of the churches that was big time in helping us.
Okay.
Our doctors and several of our nurses, either they were retired or they were connected with CDC, and they wanted to sort of keep some of the skills of practicing. And they came and they helped. And we ran the house, Oakhurst, Beacon Hill Community Clinic for 5 years. Now, we started out with maybe 5 patients because nobody knew about it. Of course, we didn't have nobody trying to market or any of that. We just had to do everything by word of mouth. But that first evening we were open, those were 5 people, none which I think was really had any real need to have the doctor to see them, but we had to do something that night. And after that, there were lines began to get a little bit longer. And we went from, we didn't charge. So we went from not charging to some of the patients came in and said, but I want to do something. I want to give you something. And they started out, if you could give us 50 cents, fine. If you give us $1, fine. Or whatever you want to give. Because the rest of us are volunteers. So we took whatever that fee money was and put it back into, if some patient needed medication, we would pay for it at the druggist.
Wow.
And 5 years later, the insurance people said we can no longer operate as a free-base clinic. So the doctors were, they were insured through CDC, which they didn't consider that as being insured in the private sector like most of the physicians. So we had to close because of the insurance. A few years later, when this Oakhurst community was changing economically, racially, the whole bit. Everybody wanted Scottish Rite Hospital. We can do this, we can do that, we can do the other thing. And those of us who have been active in the community and saw and knew the value of the building as well as the property around it said, no, we're not going to put light industrial here. And we got busy. Then did a committee to say we're going to make the application to put it on the National Register of Historic Places, so we don't have to worry about it being torn down. And we will figure out a way to how to use it for what the intent was. As a result, Oakhurst Community Health Center was able to open again.
Oh, wow.
And we got doctors this go round from what was called the National Health Service Corps. And these were doctors that had to pay back their obligation. And they had to work in a underserved community. And what a blessing. So we started out with one, and we started out with one nurse, and we started out with very few patients. And it grew, and it grew. And when I retired in 1996, I had 6 doctors. I had contract doctors. I had contract pharmacy. I had contract dental. And we were providing a whole, the whole round of health care under one umbrella. And we became part of the network of community centers all over the state. And actually, we got, pretty big with the national. We were members of the National Association of Community Health Center. I used to travel around once a year. We all got together to share information. And I got doctors through the National Health Service Corps, and all of them, if I interviewed them, they wanted to come to Oakhurst.
Wow.
Yeah.
That meant something. Her reputation was like
And the last group that I hired in the physician field was a full-time OBGYN, and in his practice, he had midwives. And I have a picture for you to go in this. And the patients loved the midwives. And we had gotten, nurse practitioners. I don't know if they can do it now or not, but they couldn't admit and follow the patient in the hospital. But they could work, like with Dr. Stewart. His midwives could work with him, but they couldn't come in and deliver. Yeah. But the patients loved it, and we were making a difference. Infant mortality rate was like, wow, look at this. And our pediatrician and our nutritionists working together. We had kids who had high blood pressure, obese. We had men folks who wanted us to fill out paperwork so they could get their physical and not do the exam. We said, no, we don't do that. You have to go somewhere else. We don't do that. And I always remember the one person, he was coaching something, and he needed a physical. I'm fine. Miss Wilson, I'm fine. Look at me. I'm like, yeah, but you still got to go through. And his blood pressure was like, and I'm like, you can go out there running on that floor, and you can fall out with a stroke or something, because you don't know that your blood pressure is sky high. And so we, not only did we provide the service to the patient, we provided education. I had a healthcare education, and I was always looking for resources. If you had some money that you didn't know what to do with, and I heard about it, I had no problem. I'm losing all of that I can't do it. I've gotten over all of that. I'm like, yes, you can. And I would go after it. I got a $50,000 grant from the Atlanta Presbyterian to say, I hope this helped. And boy, did it help.
Wow.
And then, of course, you know, the Community Health Center was under Kennedy's War on Poverty program. So we got federal funds through that. And that's how the doctors was able to come and work in the community, because we had to do all of the paperwork that to get the designation of being an underserved community. We didn't have them.
So Ms. Wilson, fast forward to 1980, your long history of civil rights led you to run for a public office. So in 1984, you ran and won city commissioner of City of Decatur. Then you ran for City of Decatur mayor in 1993 and won. You became the first Black mayor of the City of Decatur. Tell us what were your feelings like? How did you feel when your name was in the newspaper and you became the first Decatur's first Black mayor?
Well, I'm gonna go back just a little bit when I became the first African American female to be elected to city commission before this happened.
Right.
Now, I had 6 other people, which was more than ever, that had running for a seat in the city of Decatur. So I had no really clue as to what I was doing. Like, nobody in my family had ever served in an elected position. I had never served. I'm out there trying to get people off the street and get them a place to live and food to eat and all that kind of stuff. I didn't know about no politics. But again, we had a meeting at Decatur Federal Bank, and the president of the bank said, we need to have a candidate to run for city commission. It is time for Decatur to have an African American on the commission. Well, I had brought my dear friend Joy Jackson, and I was so ready to say, I think Miss Jackson should be the one to do this. I had no idea that they had plotted to make sure that I was the one. So we go around the table and we're talking about who would be a good candidate. And before I could get my hand up, I'm right here now with my hand. And Miss Jackson said, well, I think Elizabeth, which is what she calls me, I think Elizabeth should be the one. Everybody in the room said, yeah, I do too.
Again, that was planned.
Yeah, it was planned. And so the good part of it was everybody chipped in and helped. So I never had a problem with funds and all of that and support. And this part of town was, because now we have districts, not all of it at large. And we're still trying to get to know each other. But what I know best is all of the people who voted for me. They voted for me because they either read something about it, heard something about it. And I'm the first person, candidate in the whole city to ever have a yard sign. My red and white signs there. When I was putting them all together, you know, it brought back memories. It brought back letters that I had received, like the March of Dimes, 1955. I thought that was the biggest thing in the world. Because my school, the Beacon Hill School, had gotten recognized for Mother's March of Dimes. And I got a chance to go to the little White House in Warren Springs, Georgia. And so it's been, you know, something ever since. But one of the biggest things was the election, because I didn't tell my family this. I didn't tell my family in Greensboro what I was doing. Right? They knew a lot of things I was doing, but I didn't tell them about my running for city commission. So, and I didn't ask them for money or anything, because I had enough money to pay for signs and mailing material. So how about the night of the election, we were standing in City Hall and waiting for the results to come in. And they were a little bit slow, but it was not late. And all of a sudden, my son came over to me. He was standing closer to Karen Desley, who was the clerk at the time. And saw a reporter, I think, because this is now in the press involved. And they whispered, Karen whispered to Carter and said, "Your mother won big time." And Carter came over and whispered it in my ear, and I said, "Oh my God, I won!" I had no idea what I was doing. Well, we had a party and that night. But the next morning on the radio, my cousin and family from Greensboro, Georgia, started calling me at 6:30 because the radio had started talking about this person in Decatur, Georgia, being the first African American to be elected to city commission.
Oh, wow.
And so one of my cousins called and said, "I'm just calling to see what in the world are you doing in Decatur, Georgia now?" And because they know I was already busy and so. And I said, "Yeah, it's true." And so she had a kid about third grade or something. And he went to school. Oh, and my picture was on the front of the Constitution. It was not AJC then. It was two. One in the morning, one in the evening. And little Marvin carried my picture to school with him, and it was show and tell time. He pulls out cousin's picture and said, I got something I want to say. This is my cousin." And the headline said something like Bush Black elect. And she is the president of Atlanta.
Wow. Can you believe that?
Cousin, I tell you.
They're very honest too.
Yeah. So whenever I see him now, he has his own children and everything.
Oh,
I'm like, "Thank you for elevating me so quick."
He elevated you big. Well, you did become.
And the way
you came close. You became mayor.
And the way this worked, Mike Mears was the mayor. Well, one of the first official things I done after I was elected, the first meeting in January, you elect the mayor. So the mayor is not elected by the population. The mayor is elected by the commissioners, which a lot of people don't understand that. So the five of us, can elect the mayor. And so Mike who is a very clear politician, had done his homework after I got elected to ask me to send me flowers, to send me a card, congratulating me. And it took me a little while to really understand what all that meant. And what it meant was he wanted to be the mayor. He needed my vote. And so I ended up voting for Mike Mears to be the mayor for the city of Decatur.
Wow.
So when Mike left, I think he moved out of the city. I know he got married and moved out of the city. And he came to me and said, I'm recommending you be the mayor.
Wow.
And I'm like, Mike, I don't have time. I got my full-time job here at the health center. I got a daughter who is sick. I got a grandson I need to help her take care of. I had all this long list of things, the reason I could not become the mayor. So Mike, who used to teach at Decatur High School and assistant principal at the new school, and he came and he talked to my daughter, and he asked her, don't you think your mother deserves to be the mayor of Decatur with all of the work that she has done? And my daughter said, absolutely. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it wasn't Mike who was pushing me. It was my daughter who said, absolutely, actually. So I'm like, okay, let me see if I can manage this. And we met. Of course, we meet on Monday, first Monday, third Monday. And I had to figure out how my schedule would work so I could attend the meeting. I could attend the conferences and take care of her. And Mike was 10 or 11 at that time.
That was hard.
It was real hard. It was, and then when the doctor told us that she was terminally ill, we're like, I gotta take care of my daughter. But everybody in family, they chipped in. Her Angela's friend, and so it worked out for me, and it was good for me because I didn't have time to sit around and grieve about. Yeah. And then we had a lot of things going. I had a chance to go to Africa, and we had adopted the 2 cities in Africa to be our sister cities, Ouagadougou and Busega. And then we started planning for the Olympic. Olympic was huge in this town. The History Center, I always remember this. We were the host town for our sister city. We were the host town for Ireland. They brought everything to set up the Irish pub where the History Center is, or where the big room upstairs. And I've never seen whatever an Irish pub looked like. That's what that room looked like. And it was good that they had that because they party all night. So that they didn't interrupt the neighborhood and the neighbors complaining and all that. And it was several just such good things. The Muhammad Ali, he lit the torch. And, that was real.
We have that picture.
Everybody was crying by the time he got there. And this, do you have this?
Oh, you have yes, you do. You have a jacket.
I don't have that photo.
This photo.
No, I don't have the photo.
And I have
that jacket is everything. It's the nicest.
And I have another one with Leanne Levitan and Jerry and me. But Jerry volunteered to carry the torch for Decatur.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this is in City Hall. The torch. So you want to take get a copy of that.
I'll scan that in.
And so the Olympic went well. Oh, and then we had all of the drummers, the dancers. We entertained. City of Decatur entertained the world because we had people from everywhere, and they loved it. They loved coming to Decatur.
So, Ms. Fuller, when you retired, the city did a dedication of you in the Decatur Square. And the article is so nice. You have Rosalind Carter right next to you.
Yeah.
Also, you got an honorary degree from Agnes Scott College.
Yeah.
That was in 2008. Tell us about those events.
On this, when I retired, I announced early that I would not run again. And so at the end of 1998, I went ahead and made my announcement because I didn't want, like anybody can just come and fill my seat. I wanted somebody who could carry on what I believe made the difference in this 4 square miles. I wanted somebody who could make sure that the Beacon Hill community was treated like it was part of the city instead of where all of the hired help or nothing happened, that kind of thing. It's rich. I mean, you could hear yesterday from the people yes, we might have worked in the kitchen or we might have worked in the yard, so we might have cleaned your house, but we had a life. And that life was very rich. We were artists. We were teachers. We were preachers. We were administrators. We were everything like the rest of Decatur. Decatur says, motto, we are the city of homes, schools, places of worship. All of that was in that little spot. We had churches, we had homes, and we had businesses.
A community.
So it was a community, and it should be it shouldn't be the project. That's not what it is. The project is so insulting to me because I just go back and say Alan Wilson was the first African American to start a school in the city of Decatur for blacks.
Wow.
First. He was a Presbyterian minister and he was an educator, and so was his wife. So we should honor that. Now, I will say the city did vote to name the 200 units Alan Wilson. Somewhere along the line, somebody felt like we got to add the project. And so that's that should not happen that way. We do not call Phillip Tower the project. Phillip Tower was built with federal money, just like Allen Wilson was. So at the end of my time, I didn't have a clue as to, I had my little farewell speech all together. I didn't even let Peggy read it. I wanted it to be a surprise. So near the end of the meeting, when I got my little thing all together, Bill Floyd said something about he wanted to speak, and said they rolled this in on a cart. And I was so excited about it because I knew it was a television that I could put in my kitchen and watch. Had it all great. And I'm like, oh, now I'm going to have TV in my kitchen. Well, Bill kept talking, and I'm like, what? Not only was he kept talking, but here were all the people, all of the former commissioners, and all of a sudden it got my daughter, who at that time was living in Athens teaching, and Chris was maybe three, and there were one or two other people who don't usually come to the Decatur City Commission meeting.
They can do something.
And all of a sudden, it dawned on me, you know what? These people are here because I'm retiring. But I still had no idea that this is what it was. Oh, and the artist who they had commissioned to do it, he was there. And I thought, for a minute, wow, that's nice that he come to the commission meeting. But I had no clue as to what they were doing.
Wow.
And they had the big one down on the square right now. See, for somebody who know almost everything that happened in my town, I had no idea. I didn't pay that any attention because I wasn't thinking. I knew they had just finished redoing the square with the bandstand and all of that. And when they unveiled this and read the inscription on it, I was like, I can't, this is way too much.
That's so funny.
And so they planned the formal dedication of it in May. And we invited Mrs. Carter, she was probably the biggest celebrity we had. But it was about maybe 200 people who attended, including my mother and my sisters and my brother.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, but that was really special. And my friend from Denver, and I had some people who came in North Carolina and South Carolina.
And then Agnes Scott gave you that degree in 2008. That was another surprise.
It was. I got the letter.
Oh, you got a letter from?
I got the letter from them, and I'm like, I know this is not right. And I called Demetrius Williams, who worked over there, and I know real well. And I said, Demetrius, could you help me out? What is this? And she confirmed that they wanted to, but and Scott, go back a ways. I thought this might be too big for you. But do you know who Connie Curry was? Connie graduated from Scott. She's a big civil rights. She also wrote maybe a couple of books. And Scott every year in January have the convocation. And they wanted me and Connie to be the speakers that year. One, because when Connie was there, I couldn't go even if I had all of the resources. So
you meant to Agnes Scott.
To Agnes Scott.
Oh, wait.
So somewhere, and I make sure you get the copy of what I said here. So Connie talked about what it was like for her to be a student at Scott and for her to be active in the community. And, you know, we done some of the same stuff in the community. And that was pretty special to have her because she was very active with Dr. King and, you know, some of the high-profile politicians. Yeah. But I'm just a little country girl who went to my little one-room schoolhouse, and I shared that with them, what that was like for me. And even if I had wanted to go to Agnes Scott, I would not be accepted. I did want to go to the University of Georgia. I would be accepted.
And that's what I love about your archives is that it covers all of these areas. And when people read your bio and look at the pictures, they're going to see just how much you've done in your journey. So, Ms. Wilson, I just want to thank you so much for your time and your amazing journey. But before we wrap up, can you tell us something about the reasons why you decided to give your archives to the DeKalb History Center?
Well, I am a great supporter of the History Center. I go way back to Jane Mackey's days. He was chairman of the board at one time. I forget what years, but maybe in the 60s, I believe. And he also was our state representative from this part of the DeKalb. He was a nice guy, and we had many conversations, and he was, you know, really trying to get the center to be a center, not just by name, but that could house and have it open to the public and stuff. And since that time, I have totally been supported, and I have received several recognition from the History Center. Yeah, I got, I know, at least 4 or 5.